All right, all right. I hope you're doing great. We're going to jump in to tonight. We're going to talk more about financing, but because of the question that was brought up, was it yesterday? Is it already like this week is crazy about CRMLS? There's actually for multiple listing services, you can actually go into the CRMLS and watch some training videos. I'll put this in chat, and I'll also have this as my I'll make sure that this is set up on the when this is uploaded through to YouTube. But the CRMLS has some pretty cool opportunities for people that are getting into the CRMLS. And the thing that's great about the CRMLS is that it should be able to answer a lot of the questions that you had asked in class with regards to like how does the MLS work, and when I talk a little bit like radius stuff. Let me share this screen and not the screen I have up right now. What wrong thing? We are having a bit of a hiccup with the computer. This might drag on till tomorrow, which I'm fine with for the last day before we're on the road. But MLS TV, this is the MLS that I'm a part of. CRMLS is pretty much the majority of people in the state of California are a part of it, this particular network, but it gives you some really cool things. We've got Matrix Managing, Listing, CRMLS, Marketing Solutions. Let's see what else we have down here. A new way to search, create a CMA. We talked about CMAs in class yesterday, and we'll be talking more about that tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get through chapter 10 tomorrow. But what I mean by that is it's really just if you're in the practice class with me, the lecture-based class, which those of you in here are, those of you watching this in the replay crew, I appreciate you, but this is a really good resource for you to be able to go in real time and look at this. I can show you mine, but it's not the same as being able to see the videos are very specific. How to create a comparative market analysis. Searching 101 would be a really good video too on how to search for properties, because on the MLS, I don't know if you know this or not, it's not just listings. Sometimes it's leases and rentals. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. But I knew that there were videos out there, and I've used some of these videos at UCLA and Glendale Community College. So, but again, there's so many resources out there that I try to help you guys out with, that when I don't share something like this, then I'm like, oh, that reminds me of, Anyway, okay. Let's jump back into, we were working on finance, I think, in the last class, in the last live session. If that's not or maybe it was 2 sessions ago. If that's not the direction you want to go, that's okay. We can answer other questions as well. Let's see, hold on. Got to go in I know you can see this. I'm not worried about you guys seeing all my folders and stuff. We're dealing with a bit of a migraine today, so I do apologize. That is particular folder. So the brain is not braining, but I think I say that almost every day. And I think it was last weekend. It might have been the weekend before. To be honest, things have been so crazy over the last few weeks that it's a little bit harder to stay on target with stuff. I do write things down in my phone, but I'm missing some stuff because I thought I wrote it down in the phone and it's not there. So we didn't get very far. I think we only got to like slide. Oh no, wait, this is institutions. I don't think this is the right one. Hold on just a second. I have it up on this computer. Let me make sure I have the same. Oh, no. This is, we're supposed to be in finance and stuff. This is financial. This is the foundation for the Fed and how like financing and stuff works. I guess it's not in here. Okay, that's okay. I thought it was in that folder, but it must be in a different one. Mm-mm. See, it's like the computer is really acting up, so I don't know what to say. I'm fine with anything you want to teach on if anyone had anything else. Okay. I don't have any emails with regards to anything else. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, there we are. Finance and stuff. Okay, cool. And I can check, but I'm 100% sure. I've been checking up on the emails all day, but I haven't checked. I will say I haven't checked in the last, I don't know, like hour. Some law nerd stuff. Yeah, no, I don't have. I will say though, oh man, I'm so sorry you're sick. Please get some ginger. We'll make this a short one, okay? For a few different reasons. One, like I don't know what's going on, but I'm totally exhausted. And I don't know if or I didn't sleep well. I usually sleep well with the rain, but I didn't sleep well. So we can do a little touch up. I mean, if the only thing that that you get out of this class, or you being the you in the class, or you the proverbial you that's watching this, is to know that there's a lot on YouTube that is available at your fingertips that'll help you as a real estate agent. CRMLS, some of the videos are snooze fest, but some of them, because they're specific, like I was showing you, where it had how to create a comparative, or CMA, Country Music Awards, right? Comparative market analysis, or searching listings or searching for properties. Those ones are going to really help you, because one thing you'll find out with the CRMLS or with any of the MLS searches is they're not set up, they're not necessarily user friendly. So if you forget to click something, it will return a zero listing report, and you're like, well, why? There's got to be at least one house out there with at least 2 bedrooms. What's going on? So there's little things like that. So they'll show you tricks of the trade, which is really cool. We're not on the first page. Let me. Yeah, the brain is not braining. Let's do this. When the last time we talked about finance, we were talking about how usury is a thing that's no longer necessarily possible. I think it was your class that the student had asked about the DSCR loans, and I didn't mean to hurt, man, I might have hurt people's feelings yesterday, not my intention. When I tell people, I'm like, oh, that's not a new loan, it's just a renamed loan. Once you get in the industry, because that can be kind of offensive. Once you get in the industry, you're going to find that there's a lot of stuff where they just put a new name on it. In the same way, like, there were these terrible diet pills in the 90s, and that they were called FinFin. And then they remarketed it under a different name, but it basically, it's really dangerous stuff. And so there's different situations like that where basically that's how loans work too. The book is going to tell you that there's so many more products on the market right now than there ever were before. No, the book should have said there's so many products on the market today that a borrower or a potential buyer can go and find that resource without going through someone than ever before. You can go and find that information out personally as a potential buyer, and that's where I think the book, it kind of like drops the ball. And not just this book, like most of the curriculum books talk in these generalities, and it's like, okay, you can talk in generalities most of the time, but when you talk in generalities when it comes to lending, the Fed is covering the lending. You can't just willy-nilly, they can't just pull out of a rabbit's hat a new loan without it either being nationwide or something, because loans aren't necessarily specific to the state. The only time they're ever specific to the state is when they're government backed, and like you have a first time home buyer program in your county and you're one of 50 families that are going to get that particular loan program because your income does not exceed $50,000 a year combined income. Like there are these really specific parameters, and those are government backed loans. And when those loans come about, those ones are, but like the no income, no asset, what we called the Nina Ninja back in the day, is now called the DSCR or the DS the DCSR. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings by going, oh, no, no, that's not a new loan. It technically is a new name. And a lot of times you'll find these loans that got a lot of people in trouble before, they repackage them under a new name, but the people lending the money are still lending the same money, getting the same money back or more because rates are higher. So anyway, usury. And so the word's triggering to a lot of people and myself. But the truth of the matter is a lot of these loan programs back before the crash of 2007, 2008, the reason why those loans were able to come in is because they looked right or they looked good to the buyer. And then the buyer got into them and they're like, wait a minute, this is a form of usury. You guys gave me this loan. You made lots of money off me. And so what happens is they no longer have those particular or those, they have those loans per se, but they'll wipe those loans off of the market and then they'll bring back a new loan that is basically the exact same loan with the stipulations that a course needs to be taken or a booklet needs to be signed or a blah, blah, blah. So is it still usury? Yeah, these loans are crazy. There's a lot of crazy loans out there, but the buyer is aware of what they're getting into, the sticky madness that is borrowing. Whereas before, I can tell you they didn't necessarily know what they were doing. If they came to our office, they did, because we were very specific and direct. But there were a lot of agents that worked with us that were like, well, they signed the docs, they should figure it out. I'm like, oh, you might not. You might not want to be on that side of on the other side of the courtroom for this one. We might want to, check that. So anyway, loan programs are the same. They change a little. Is there a maximum rate? So the chat says, is there a state or federal maximum cap on interest rates now? Well, there's technically a cap on what is conforming and conventional loans. So anything that's got like a government insurance or it's government insured, the government has stipulations, but the stipulations aren't just that these are the rates and you can't exceed. So let me give you an example of how you can't exceed. Let's say that the standard average Joe can get a 7% interest rate. Now, the stipulations by the government or by the state would be, from a lending perspective, would be that if the standard rate is 7%, you cannot exceed it by more than 1.5% of whatever the standard rate is. So there's a calculation there. And then if you do exceed, so let's say you're not getting, let's say that Adam wants to get buy a home and he doesn't want to get a 30-year fixed loan. He wants to get something that's a little bit higher risk uh, property, meaning he's putting less money down. So he puts down 5%. And so the standard, everybody else is getting 7%, but because of the risk of the loan and it's a first time home buyer and it's this and that, they can charge you up to they can charge you for that loan. Even though you started at 7%, they're going to ding you for the fact that you're a first time home buyer. Ding is a term that I use. They're going to ding you for putting less than 20% down. They can do those things, but it has to be within regulation. So when we talk about how there's a maximum cap or there's a ceiling on what the government will allow, the government will say, okay, you can give them that 8.5%, but it has to be justified, but it can't exceed more than, as an example, 1.5% higher than what the average interest rate is or that kind of thing. The interest rates are across the country and the lenders are across the country. So the regulations are pretty much standard for banking or mortgage practices or non-depository institutions, because most lending institutions are non-depository. They're not a bank where you can go get a savings account, deposit your check. They just take your mortgage payment. So I don't know the numbers off of the top of my head per se, but that's where this whole like usury thing comes into play, where you've got people that are like, okay, wait a minute, how come everybody else has a 7% interest rate and I've got a 12? Well, and that's where the word usury or usury comes in play, where people actually, yeah. So it's not that you can't be given an astronomical interest rate. You can, and but it's stipulated, it's regulated, I should say, by lending requirements that are okay. If you're going to do that, you've got to be able to justify those kind of things. Now, if it's a hard money loan, we talked about hard money loans last week, I think. If it's a hard money loan or if it's like a personal loan to help you flip a house, they can charge you any interest rate they want to, because that's outside the realm of what's being what the government or what the federal guidelines. You're now in completely different territory. And you'll find that a lot of people that go into commercial real estate Language, we're in class. Hold on. You're doing so good. You'll find that in commercial real estate and stuff, there's a bunch of people that are willing to lend. And I think I said this in your class. They're willing to lend on a commercial property with hard money or a personal loan that has to be paid back in like 7 months or in less than a year or whatever at a really high interest rate, because they know that if you don't pay it back, they get the building, and that's what they want anyway. So that hard money stuff, that like personal, and they call them personal loans because they can't really put a lien, because you then, like, let's say as an example, I gave you a 14% interest rate. You could actually go to court and go, she gave this to me and I believe I believe this is under usury because this is what we thought, this is all we could get, and they charge us this and they charge us that, and the judge is going to look at that and go, okay, you know that there is a cap on what you can charge within reason and all that. So it would put us in a position as a lending institution, not that you don't owe the money, but what would happen is if we were found guilty as a lending institution of taking advantage of you, what the court would decide is, okay, guess what, you can run after Adam all you want to get the mortgage, but we're releasing this debt from his property. It's going to be a personal debt he owes you, but you can't have, based on the way you lent money to him and the way you took advantage of him or usury was involved, we're going to release his property from the lien of the $600,000 that you owe, that he owes you, and then you can just find another way to get the money from him, but there will be no loan against that property. And so so it basically puts you as the consumer in a position where you can go file bankruptcy and wipe out that $600,000 loan. So you can see where when a court gets involved, how they go, oh, so you decided to take good advantage of the consumer, no problem. Good luck getting your $600,000. We're going to make this a personal loan. We're going to take, well, you can figure it, like when they say you, the judge will basically be like you as the lender can figure out how you're going to figure this out, but you can't have a lien against property. I'm not saying he doesn't owe you the money. I'm just saying you're going to have to find another way to fight to get the money from this dude, because what you did was not a loan. What you did was hard money, or what you did was usury. And in that situation, you could, literally go and file bankruptcy and wipe the debt out completely. So lenders won't really go too crazy. They might go a little crazy, but I don't think they'll go too crazy. I think one of the last pages, or one of the last slides that we looked at in class so the Wednesday night Q&A, is types of repayment plans. There's that single payment at the end of the term. There's the initial, there's the interest only, like a credit card. So you've got like this kind of a straight loan where you're paying just the interest, but you're not necessarily paying down the balance. If you have credit cards, and because there's some Dave Ramsey's out there, and I totally get it. I actually taught the Dave Ramsey classes multiple times, multiple years in a row, finance. But if you have any credit cards or anything and you just have them on auto pay, um, I took on this weird research I did about 3 years ago, and I put one card on auto pay and I never used it again. And it wasn't a lot. I think it was $1,800. I think it was $1,800. Anyway, I got I got paperwork in the mail this month letting me know, because I'm on auto pay, that I still owe them $48. And it's okay because the auto pay will pay it off in like the next 2 or 3 months. But I thought it was fascinating that it took 3 years to pay off $1,800. So even putting cards on auto pay, you're technically paying interest only, and then a little bit goes to the balance. But that interest will continue to grow the balance. So when I think of interest only loans, I think of things like credit cards. Now you're not going to grow the balance with an interest only mortgage, right? You're only paying the interest on that property. You're not paying the balance. So you can pay on it for 30 years and still owe what you originally owed however many years ago. I guess that would be 30. Partially amortized would have a balloon payment like the image here up at the top right corner. So you've got that partially amortized with a balloon payment. And basically, if you've been paying on a partially amortized loan $3,000 a month on the last month of the last month of the 30th year, right? The 12th month of the 30th year, you go to make the payment and it's no longer $3,000, it's $15,000, or it's $150,000. basically that balloon payment is anything that did not get paid off during the life of the loan that should have been paid off if you had been fully amortized. So a partially amortized loan is going to have a chunk of change at the end 30 years from now. A lot of times you'll find people will do a partially amortized with a balloon payment loan because they either are never going to pay the house off and they're going to sell it in the next 5 years, or they don't, like, they think that they're putting less money out a month, but they still have the house. And so there's this understanding or I guess you could say justification for we're getting a bigger house at a slightly lower price than we would if it was a 30-year fixed. So all of that being said, fully amortized payments are your fixed standard run-of-the-mill meat and potato 30-year fixed, right? So you have the same payment for all 30 years for all of the 12 months in every single one of those years. And these are some of the examples of different types of options out there. Now, you might ask, well, are there other types of options that would be available to me? Absolutely. These are your standard run-of-the-mill that people are aware of. But if you go to your local credit union or you go to your local savings and loan, if you go to your saving at your local thrift, there are a number of different what they call portfolio programs that those companies have for their members. And you might find that they have something completely different. There's also bi-monthly payments. That was a huge thing with Countrywide, where you paid half your mortgage on the first and you paid half your mortgage on the 15th. And technically speaking, it calculated out to you paying a completely one additional payment a month, excuse me, a year, and you were able to pay your house off in, like, I think 28 years or 27 or 25 years instead of at 30. So there are different little things you can do. You can also pay your mortgage forward. That is something you would have to do on a 30-year fixed loan, and something that I've actually been researching. You'll hear a lot about these kind of things with there's a lot of YouTube stuff out there. There's a lot of Insta out there stuff, but there are ways to pay your mortgage forward. So let me give you an example of paying your mortgage forward. If you paid your December payment and you got a nice bonus and you're like, you know what, I think I'm just going to pay January ahead of time. So you pay January, and then January comes, you're like, I already paid January, I might as well pay February. And then you see that there's extra money and you pay March. You're paying your mortgage forward, meaning that you don't have a mortgage payment until April. And then in March, you might pay April and May and get to the point where you're almost a year in advance in payments to your mortgage lender. And you're like, Kathy, how do you do this? Well, you kind of have to do it old school. Send them a letter saying, this is for my June payment, please, or this is for my March payment, or this is for my, please do not put this to the balance. Please put this for the payment for June or for the payment. And then what if you get in a non-lethal car accident where you can't work and you're going to be on unemployment for a little bit, like 6 months, you're rehabilitating. Now we have paid our mortgage forward. So technically you don't have a mortgage payment for 12 months. So you're in a position where you can keep paying your mortgage forward and basically pay your house off. And I think it's 15 years. I haven't really done all the maths on that one, but you're in a position where you continue to pay your mortgage forward, or you're in a position where you've lost your job, but you don't have to worry about the roof over your head. The things you need to be focusing on now are getting another job, making sure that the electricity and water are kept on and stuff. So there are opportunities at our fingertips as realtors and as well as consumers that if we just do a little adding and subtracting and a little bit of compound interesting kind of stuff, there are ways to make sure there's always a roof over your head. So, and that's one of those things you go and you sit down with your bank where you bank and go, tell me about the craziest loan you have that people are scared of getting and why. And you might find that they have a really cool loan out there that only Bank of America gives, or only, your UME Credit Union or Federal, what is it called? The Federal Navy? No, it's the Navy Federal Credit Union or whatever that we talked about last week, I think it was. So there's opportunities. So the only way we're going to know about them is if we ask. All right, we don't have to answer. Wrong way. We don't have to answer any of those questions tonight. So neg amps, oops, that's all that's on that screen. Hold on a second. Maybe I deleted something on accident. It wouldn't have been on purpose, but crazier stuff's happened in my class. Well, A negatively amortized loan is exactly what it shows. I think I split up the two screens between the two of them because there was other information on this page that wasn't about neg amps. A negatively amortized mortgage is not legal in the state of California, but it is legal across the country and other places. When they say it's a negatively amortized loan, you get an amortization schedule. You, the proverbial you, your clients get an amortization schedule that says these are what your payments are going to be that are projected over the next 30 years if it's a 30-year fixed, over the next 2 years if it's a 2-year adjustable rate mortgage, over the next 1 year if it's a different type of like running with the market index or some one of the indexes. So you'll get that amortization schedule. With a negative amortization schedule, the amortization schedule that you would have gotten prior to them no longer being legal in the state of California would just be your standard run-of-the-mill 30-year fixed amortization schedule, because the negative amortization loan gave you four options when it came to making your mortgage payment. You had the regular standard run-of-the-mill 30-year fixed, you had the regular 15-year potentially 15-year fixed loan. I think they had I think the third option was a partially amortized, not partially amortized, like there's a third version. I can't remember what it was, but the fourth option was the neg am. So as an example, if your mortgage payment was $1,000, you got a mortgage for $100,000. Your mortgage payment is 1,000, but you decided to pay the negatively amortized payment, which is half. And that's what would happen is the neg am payment would be like half of what your regular mortgage would be. And so it was such an enticing loan for people to get into because they were like, you mean my mortgage payment would be half what everyone else's is? And the people explaining how these negams worked were like, yes, but you can only use that payment 15 times in 30 years. And that's really for like when there's a tough like and in the same thing I was talking about 15 minutes ago, where you're in a car accident and you need to get back on your feet. So you could do the negative amortization payment to get back on your feet. It would be half of what your mortgage would be. And people that were sharing and selling these loans to the consumer weren't actually sharing all the specifics they needed to. These loans could only be used 15 times in a 30-year period. You had to go with the regular standard 30-year. I was like, how is that loan ever being paid? Oh, no, exactly. So you're not going to see in the book anything about the negatively amortized loans. I actually was a notary on one of these. And because I had been hearing about them and I was fascinated by them, I was going through the loan docs not my client, with another person's client and another agent in one of the offices I worked at. And we were discussing it, and the person that gave them the loan was like, yeah, see, this is your payment. And I was like, no, this is only your payment for 15. And I put it's in the documents. And they're like, what do you mean? You told me my payment would be half what it was before. And I'm like, as a notary, I'm just kind of sitting back going, I'm only reading what's on the paper. I don't know what this person sold you. I didn't say any of that. I just was like, you know what? Let me give you guys some space and time. I'm just reading what's on the documents. I'm just, like like dialing it back. Like, you don't need to know that I know that this guy totally took advantage of you. I didn't know that until, page 100 of 200 pages. Anyway, the long and the short of it, they visited, and then I came back in to help them finish the notary process and the signing process, because I didn't just notarize the notarized documents. I also walked through each of the pages that they were signing to make sure that each of those were signed, because we were in an escrow. I was at this people's company. And the long and the short of it was that they were like, well, we need the money anyway, and we'll just have to like figure something out. And I was like, well, it is a refinance. You have a 3-day right of rescission to think this over. So, like, let us know or whatever. And I remember the agent pulling me aside saying, that's not the way I was explained it. And I was like, what do you mean that's not the way I was just told that they had this payment and they could pay like half of the mortgage. And, like, how am I supposed to, like, I gave them that they don't trust me. And I'm like, dude, you can't, if you don't know what you're selling, don't sell it. Like, I wasn't a jerk about it. I had never sold one myself. I was like, the paperwork isn't going to lie. Now, whoever it was that came into our office and told you this was a good loan, you need to get on the phone with them and ask them how to troubleshoot the situation and see if there's anything that they can do to renegotiate for these people. But like, you look bad. it is what it is. You as the person that I was talking to, you look bad. And they were really unhappy with me because I should have told them before it happened, which I really love when people talk to me like that. Because, they get themselves in a predicament and it's like, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? Dude, I'm just the note. I'm just the help, man. You know what I mean? So anyway, all of that being said, I've had some real experiences with this kind of stuff. But the reality of the situation, if your client gets $100,000 loan, and just as a side note, just like the ninjas or the Ninas or the DSCRs or the DCSRs or whatever you want to call it, all those no income, no asset, just state whatever you want, and you can use your rental income as your true income or whatever the horse malarkey is. These ones will be back too. And when they get a loan of say 100,000, or like this couple that was getting this negatively amortized loan, the loan was over $800,000, and this was before the crash. So they might have lost their property, to be honest. But anyway, I don't know. If the loan amount starts at $100,000 and they choose for the next updates available. Thanks, sorry. When somebody uses it, like as in this example, they use it the first 12 months of the payments, you'll see that when it was all said and done, but at the end of the first year, they no longer owe $100,000. They owe 167.78. So there's one more kicker that happened with these type of loans. It wasn't just that you could only use this 15 times in a 30-year period. There was also another stipulation that said, if you exceed 110% of the original loan, you will no longer have the option of this negative amortization loan, and you will be paying the full 30-year fixed. So we're not at 110, but you can see where by the 12th month, you're almost at 110%. You're at 106 point whatever, right? So it's only going to take a few more payments before you're exceeding the 110% of what the original loan amount was, which would be 110,000, right? So these loans are malarkey. They'll come back because history repeats itself and we don't know any better. And I mean that probably because of the migraine. I do apologize because I'm definitely a Debbie Downer right now. But these loans are for a savvy individual that knows a market, that knows how to play the game, that knows how to move things. I have multiple uncles that worked for IBM and their cousins that worked for IBM, and all of them, none of them would go on a 30-year fixed. Every single one of them went on one of these 5/1 arms, which meant that it was it was an adjustable rate mortgage loan, but it was a 5/1 arm in that it followed one of the indexes, and I don't know which index it was, but there were months, and it was a month to month, and there were months where the rate was down at a 1.25, and then there were months when the rate was up. And whoever their tax preparer or their accountant was, because these are guys that made lots of really big money in the 80s and 90s, basically told them, you're already watching your stocks, you could just watch your mortgage rate as well. And so like it was just one of those things, like they go hand in hand. These negative amortization loans were kind of on the cusp of that same kind of thing, where like if you're in the know, but um I'm more of I don't mind going to the hockey game and cheering on the fight. I don't want to be in the fight. And so I don't have that energy to be the one like watching the rates on a weekly or a daily or even on a monthly basis. I'm not gonna, I just kind of want to set it and forget it. I'm more of a auto pay kind of a gal. So if you're somebody that loves like being on the edge of excitement and stuff, then there are loans and stuff out there for you and for your friends. Adjustable rate mortgages, I've brought them up a few different times, right? Adjustable rate mortgages are arms. I always ask my clients to raise their arm, not weird, not in a weird way, but just raise your arm. And then I'll say something like, how long do you think you can hold it without moving? And that kind of conversation. Well, I'm going to eventually have to move my arm. You mean adjust it? Yeah. Adjustable rate mortgage, they have to adjust as well. And so giving somebody a physical feeling of how that kind of stuff works helps me be able to be a stronger instructor, or be a stronger educator in this industry, because most people in this industry are uneducated. So think about it. What do you need in order to get your what do you need to pass the state exam in the California? You have 3 prerequisite courses, right? At your local community college. Do you need a high school diploma? No. Do you need a an AA or an AS from your local community college? No. You don't need a BA, you don't need an M, you don't need an undergrad, you don't need a master's, you don't need none of it. PhD, EDD, ESD, whatever you want to call them. You don't, EDS, you don't, whatever, any abbreviation somebody wants to put behind their name, you don't need any of that stuff. You just have to take 3 community college classes, and they don't even have to be at a community college. They could be with Allied Schools or Colibri Real Estate or Real Estate Express or Rockwell or like whoever, right? And so when we start realizing that the people who are the specialists in this industry are before the crash, we're giving people financial advice, you can kind of see why the federal government was like, oh, hold the phone. Uh, Contractual law is good for this license, but people that are going to be quoting rates and quoting how people should pay their mortgage and what mortgage is best for them, you're going to have to go through a separate set of education through the NMLS. You're going to have to go through this national course that's prerequisites, then pass the national exam, and then submit the national exam back to the Department of Real Estate where you're already licensed so that we can give you an endorsement to do loan origination as well. So there are these massive hurdles now, whereas before there weren't any. So I've had people say, I just don't understand how people got in such trouble. Well, if you look at it from the perspective that, hold on a second. Thank you. When you look at the circumstances, hindsight's always 2020, right? But when you look at the situation where it is possible that the majority of the people that were in the industry that were quoting rates and quoting how to make mortgage payments and finance and all this stuff, not only had no math skills and didn't even possibly graduate from high school or had minimal college, a lot of these people that are in our industry don't even own a house, don't even own the car that they drive, but they drive a beautiful car and they live in a beautiful house, and they're leasing both of those things because they're wanting to keep up with the Joneses, and because you want your realtor to look financially successful, right? And people put this on the agent's willing to, but so there's a lot that goes into it. So the whole reason why I'm bringing all that up is adjustable rate mortgages are a thing, and they're still a thing, but they are the thing that was the Achilles heel for the crash of 2007 and 2008. The reason for that is, and I've talked about this in class before, but I'm going to go back over it again. Most of these ARMs, these adjustable rate mortgages, were 2 or 3 year adjustable rate mortgages. So if you came in at a qualifying rate of 5%, to get a house, and rates, that standard rates, hold on just a second. Most of the people that were getting, sorry about that, most of the people that were getting these loans, they were getting qualified on what's called a qualifying rate, and it was 5%. But if their standard 30-year fixed rate was 6 or 7%, they wouldn't be able to get approved for that loan because the rate was higher. So the debt to income that included this new mortgage would cause their debt to income ratio to be too high, so lenders wouldn't do it. But if you could get a client a 5% interest rate on a 3-year ARM or a 2-year ARM, they could get into a house and they would be first-time home buyers, and there was all this benefit to you situation. And so you've got these people going, I can actually own a house. Yeah, you can totally own a house, and we're going to get you in at this 5% interest rate, because in order to get into this, we're going to get you the lowest rate we can possibly get you, so we can get you to survive this loan process, get you to get the home. And then when it's all said and done, 3 years later, their rate goes from 5% to like 9%. And that actually happened. Hold on just a second. I need to figure out why I have an arrow in here. That the kind of stuff that bothers me that probably doesn't even affect you guys. But anyway, you can see why during the crash, yeah, my poor computer, it's just having a computer day. We'll just go back. I can't, for whatever reason, there's an arrow there and I can't even open it. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I'll figure it out. That arrow doesn't mean anything. So I do apologize. The crash happened. And right before well, I should say technically the crash didn't happen, but what happened is there was a massive push. I would say 2004, 2005, everybody should buy a house. Everyone could buy a house. We'll get you approved at a qualifying rate of 5%. And all of these people across the country, houses are being built, subdivisions are being put up. Some of those subdivisions weren't even built properly because there weren't enough people that worked for the city and the county to be signing off on permits. And that in itself was a crash that happened after the crash of 2007, 2008 in the ghost towns and the subdivisions that are being bulldozed because people became squatters and were burning them down, like all this stuff that was going on. It was a crazy time. And so people thought their interest rate was 5%. That's the qualifying rate that got them approved for the loan. And then their rate changed to 9. And these first time home buyers are like, whoever it was that got me in this house took advantage of me, but that's okay. I'm just going to walk away. I never owned a house before anyway. Not a problem. I'll just go rent the house down the street that the rent is the same as what my mortgage payment used to be. And I'm going to move my kids in there because we're going to be in the same neighborhood and we'll just deal with it as we deal with it. And we weren't renters before. So, I mean, we were renters this whole time before, so it's not that big of a deal to us. So they didn't understand or even recognize, and this is like a general conversation. They didn't even understand or even recognize that their choices would cause such a massive ripple effect in the industry. But the reality is the people that were presenting them these loans were telling them their interest rate was 5%. They weren't clarifying it was the qualifying rate. And so after all of that happened, now you've got a booklet that's required if you get anything other than a 30-year fixed. You as the proverbial you, but the consumer, are you aware that the type of loan you're going to get could go from 5 to 9 to even 14%? The in excess of 14, but it will never, there'll always be a ceiling where the interest rate cannot exceed 1% from the previous year and cannot go below 1% of the previous year. So let's say as an example, you had an adjustable rate mortgage, your rate started at 3 years later, or the beginning of the third year, your interest rate jumped to 9%. The next year, you're going to get a letter from your lending institution that says, oh, hey, thank you so much for paying that 9% interest. Legally, we cannot raise the rent for, we can't raise the interest rate more than 1% up or down. And this is a good year for you because your interest rate's now 8%. And you're like, 8% is not 5. So you can see why people were like, wait a second. We struggled through that 9%. Now you're going to tell me you're only dropping it by 1%. You raised it by 4, and so adjustable rate mortgages, they're the devil's in the details, how the lending works and how they have these cap rates and how they have these other opportunities. Now, of course, lenders now have to have detailed pages. So remember, I don't know if you remember in class this past Tuesday or even any of the classes you were with me, and I talked to you about all the clauses. Well, this is a particular clause that a lender might have a buyer sign. And this clause is associated with, if you add anyone's name on title, it will cause the lender to say, hey, you either pay by the end of the month or get their name off of title because we don't have them on the loan. All of these clauses that are associated with getting loans for clients, within those clauses has information about how the interest rates will go up or they'll come down, which index they're going to move with, and what the chances are, what the percentages of the rate going up or the rate going down, and how often will that happen. It'll happen every year. It'll happen every 5 years. It's not going to happen every 5 years. It happens every year, but it might happen every 6 months. And so that crash of 2007, 2008 put all of the lenders on in a position where they're like, okay, we can't trust that the loan officer is going to do what they have to do, or the loan originator is going to do what they have to do. So we're going to have more clauses and more disclosures put into the loan docs that the client, once they sign it, they can take us to court and say that we took advantage of them. The paperwork's here. So then the federal government came in and said, hey, we get that you guys are going to put all these clauses and stuff in. Congratulations. We're going to make a booklet that forces federal guidelines to be followed, or forces state guidelines to be followed, or federal and state guidelines to be followed, that if you as the consumer are going to get this type of loan, you must be aware. And then they have bullet points of these, like 4 bullet points, and they're usually written at a 4th grade level. And I don't mean to be rude, but the newspaper is written at a 4th grade. It might be 3rd or 2nd grade by now, but they're written in layman's terms so that the borrower can't get the loan and can't move forward with the process without signing the booklet anyway. And so they have the federal guidelines have it's for this booklet is now forced. They're like, you can put as many pages to the 200 pages of loan docs you want to, but there's got to be a booklet with colored pictures. I don't mean to be rude when I say that, but seriously, that they can see that 2 + 2 is 4, that this is not a 30-year fix, that their rate is not 5, that that's the qualifying rate that got them the loan, but eventually their rate is going to be higher than what the standard 30-year fixed rate is, because that's how lenders make their money. And if that had been explained, we probably wouldn't have as big of a crash. Any questions? It's 7:20. I didn't realize I talked that much. I apologize. We're good? We might just be piecemealing a couple slides at a time, honestly. Yeah, you're okay. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Well, let's do this. Let's end 10 minutes early. I apologize. We'll get this thing uploaded. I just feel like a wreck. And I know that I'm going to be talking to most of you for 6 hours tomorrow. But if you have any questions or want to go over the other stuff, please don't just reach out, but please check out the CRMLS videos, and we'll talk more, and I'll be able to show you guys CRMLS in real time when we get to the legal aspects book. Yeah, I hope you feel better too. I am so sorry that I'm just dragging. I did do acupuncture today, and sometimes that causes a detoxification as well, which it's neither here nor there. But I took the ibuprofen a half an hour ago because I thought it would like kick in before class, and I'm just feeling dead to the world. So anyway, you too, no negative. I'm not trying to be negative. Get some rest, be well. I'll see you in the morning. For everybody else that I'm going to see in the morning, or in the next few days or whatever, I'm a text message away. You know that I'm an email away. Those of you that are struggling with customer service right now, customer service sounds like they're closed. They're trying to share with you they're going to be closed next week. Please, when you call customer service, if you're doing any classes with Colibri, Real Estate, Rockwell, Real Estate Express, any of those schools, get on the customer service line, let them blow through whatever it is that they say. Press 3 because that's for all other calls. Make sure that you get your book, if you have not got your book, the practice book with the new explicit implicit bias training, because that is the book that's going to power you through. If you've taken classes from me within the last 2 years, or the last year, because it would have to be within the last year, and you have yet to fill out your application and submit it to the Department of Real Estate, you're going to need to do the bias training certification with the National Association of Realtors, because if your application is not approved by December 30th or 31st, you're going to have to take the practice class again. Now, for those of you that are in the implicit and explicit bias training class with me right now, the practice book, the brand spanking new one, Adam actually happens to be in there. You guys are my first pancake. So all of you guys that are in that class, don't worry about what I'm saying right now. This is for all students that I've had prior to starting that new practice book last week. If you have taken practice with me prior to that, you have to take your bias training certification with the National Association of Realtors to regulate out the additional education that was needed that was not in that practice book. So please reach out to me. You guys have my phone number, you have my Google Voice number, and you have my email. But reach out, and we will continue to supplement these Wednesday night Q&As. But that being said, it is 7:22. If I do not see you before the rest of the holidays, happy holidays for those of you that have already celebrated, and happy holidays for all of you that are about to celebrate, and or are still celebrating. You get some of you guys get a gift for a crazy night. So that being said, be blessed and encouraged. Absolutely. Have a good evening, and I will see you guys all soon. Bye.